fact that young people are abusing drugs across the country is no longer news. However, here in Bayelsa State, the problem has taken on a deeper dimension as many teenage girls now engage in the use of drugs. This special report focuses on its prevalence among young females in the state, its causes, implications, as well as ways to tackle the problem.
I'm 23 years old. I've been taking, yes, I do drugs. I've been taking drugs since 2012, and the first one I took was marijuana, and it keep on going continuously. I think I take more than 5, close to 10 wraps a day, and a bottle of codeine.
The drugs I started with was marijuana. Started taking marijuana until I moved on to Refno, Sueno, and Arizona. I've noticed when taking drugs, you get this, it makes you feel like without the drugs, you can't do anything on your own.
I'm 23. I started taking drugs at the age of 17, and I took drugs for 4 years. At first, when I was learning, the Indian hemp, they give me I take 2 drugs. I noticed I started finishing 1 wrap. From 1 wrap, it wasn't getting me high enough. Then I got into other things like Refno. Started with 2. From 2, it got to an extent that I can even take up to a card. Then I did codeine from half to 1. So
Tamara, Pat, and Ebiere represent many of the girls in Bayelsa who started using drugs as teenagers. Dr. Francis Chia, a psychologist working with the state's National Drug Law Enforcement Agency's Rehabilitation Center, and Dr. Adolfo Swampara, a psychiatrist with the Mental Health Unit of the Federal Medical Center in Yenagoa, say there has been a significant increase in the number of females aged between 15 and 25 who visit the facilities for drug abuse and addiction problems.
In the past 3 years in Bayelsa State, based on the record that the NDLA has, there has been an increase in drug use among teenage girls. Like when we look at year 2014, we have about 12 females. Now down to year 2016, we have about 27 female, which clearly shows that there has been the double increase.
We got some statistics to show from people that have on admission and those that have come in for outpatient, and even from those that have been referred to us from the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. We've seen an increase, and even from referrals from other parts of the hospital, there have been an increase in the number of females who are doing drugs.
Statistics from the state's NDLA Drug Reduction Unit reveals that the number of females cancelled and treated for drug use has been on the rise since 2016. The figures indicate a 206% increase in drug usage amongst females, while drug usage by males over the same period declined by 24%. So what is driving these young females to abuse drugs?
It helps them to relax. It helps them to satisfy themselves more. Maybe when it comes to sex, having sex, it helps them to read. Like most people, whenever they take drugs, it helps them, it opens their brain more to read. Like it helps them to stay awake at that period to read and understand. And most girls, they take drugs simply because their friends are taking it, peer pressure. And most girls, they take drugs because it helps them to feel at ease at what they are doing at that particular time. Like it makes them comfortable with what they are doing, even when the thing is wrong. Maybe they are having sex or they are doing something illegal. They feel the drugs make them to feel very comfortable, very relaxed. They feel, yes, what I'm doing, I'm very comfortable with it. So.
I was going through family issues, so I left the house. I ran from the house. I was depressed and I was in pain, so I mingled with some peer group that I wasn't supposed to mingle with. So I was in pain. And when I started taking those things, they made me relieved. So I really got into them.
Other factors leading girls in the state to do drugs include neglectful and permissive parenting, easy access to drugs, poverty, observational learning, ignorance, and teenage parenting.
Another association with use of drugs among females is sexual violence. What do I mean by sexual violence? Incest, sexual abuse, rape, and other sexually related problems. And they use this as self-medication because most of them will end up, because of the post-rape trauma or post-incest trauma, they use this as self-medication, they use it to forget that those ugly experiences that they've had. And some of them have had repeated sexual problems. And very sadly, even some of them with their parents, with their fathers.
Here in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, you have a whole lot of medical stores that are not even licensed to sell this medication, but they have a way of keeping them. The people that are supposed to regulate what they sell, they're also compromised. I'm sorry to say it, but I'm going to say it. They are all compromised. Now, when somebody who is supposed to control a particular store is compromised, so what do you expect from the person selling this medication? They give it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that comes their way. So that is the reason why you find this hard medication, or rather, let's put it, this medication that are under strictly prescription. That's why you find it everywhere.
Say, for me, it's fun. For me, it's fun. For others, it's curiosity. For some people, it's, let's say, it's forceful.
Forceful how?
Yeah, like you can get raped and be injected with drugs too.
And what will happen after that?
You get addicted to it.
Pharmacologically, codeine will eventually yield morphine in the body. And morphine is known to be a drug of very high level of addiction. So that's where the addiction is coming from.
In addition to marijuana and alcohol, most of the girls abuse prescription drugs. Their favorite prescription drugs are codeine syrup, used for the treatment of cough and pain, rohypnol, a tranquilizer used to treat insomnia, tramadol used to treat pain, and Valium or diazepam used for the treatment of sleep disorders and anxiety. These drugs are taken singly or combined with other drinks to create cocktails that heighten their effects. But why do they prefer prescription drugs to other recreational drugs?
Cocaine is not cheap. Neither is morphine cheap. Neither is heroin cheap. And if people must get high, they will need to go for what they can afford. So there's a possibility of economics in it. And then, of course, availability. How readily available are these things? Those who take these drugs, or those who are high on these drugs, want to take what they can take, have the same effect, and evade being caught by the law enforcement agents. They evade the detection or early detection, because these drugs are everywhere. And when you take it, it's like you're just taking some normal medicines and what have you. So you're going on the street, nobody's harassing you, nobody's running after you.
I'll tell you why they prefer this as opposed to the regular orthodox, regular psychoactive drugs. Because they don't have odor. It's possible for them to use so many milligrams of tramadol and nobody will know because it doesn't smell. So the convict can even put it in their bag, put it in a bottle of soft drink, and the parents will not know, the brothers will not know. They're able to conceal that, as opposed to alcohol or nicotine, cigarette, or cannabis. Of course, those ones are easy to find out.
In Bayelsa, most girls abusing drugs do so in secret. Some are evasive, and most outrightly lie about their addiction. Also, parents and others who notice the behavioral change caused by drug use often misinterpret these signs as problems caused by water spirits and demonic attacks. These two factors contribute to the low number and the critical cases showing up at treatment centers.
They don't come to mental health because of the addiction, because most times when they come here, they come when they have full-blown mental and behavioral disorder, like irrational talk, stripping of themselves, having increased libido. They want to have sex more often. That's when the parents now say, okay, my child is not behaving well, or she's now becoming too stubborn or becoming rebellious at home. They will now start seeing some funny behaviors and they bring them here.
Most of the time, by the time parents bring a child to our rehabilitation center, it is at a later stage. When the situation is chronic, the use of drug is not something that you will manage at home because you don't have the professional skill. So once you notice it at the onset, get to NDLA or get to any other institution that will be of help.
And there's also a lot of spiritualization of our problems. A lot more people are taken to churches. That's the first route of people first go to church. It's an attack, it's a spiritual attack, especially when the girl begins to present with some abnormal behaviors. And what has the spirits got to do with it when you're doing drugs? It's the drugs that is causing a lot of all the trouble, and not the spirits.
The bottom line is that with prescription drugs, most parents and guardians are not aware that their daughters are using drugs. A good example is Tamara, a 23-year-old addict whose parents only got to know she was using drugs when she was arrested by NDLEA officials. Tamara was the first addict who willingly agreed to speak to me. And so a call from her requesting my assistance took me to the NDLEA office. There I was informed that she was arrested during the raid of a hotel in Yanagwa where illicit drugs are sold. Found on her were wraps of marijuana and some tablets of rohypnol. Since her dad was out of town and her mom refused to show up, I was allowed to secure her release on the condition that I'll bring her to the NDLEA's Drug Rehabilitation Center for weekly counseling sessions until funds are raised to send her to rehab.
I'm ready, that's why I'm bringing myself out. You know, every drug addict that will say they want to do a video.
Why don't you want to do your rehab in Yenegua?
To be far away from my parents.
You want to be far away from your parents? Why? You know how long they are caring.
Why do you think if you're far away from your parents, it will help you?
Because there's no motherly love or fatherly love, so they bring me.
No fatherly and motherly love.
Well, you say your father loves you.
You say your mother
loves me, but you cannot be far away from your children when they need you. Once you are far away from them, you are far away from their life.
The following week, I met with Tamara's father, and this is what he had to say.
For 6 years, I'm not aware that he's on drug, and but her behavior of recent made me to suspect that she might be on drug. To be sincere, she ran away from her house for the past 4 years or thereabout. And since then, she only comes and goes away. I tried to bring her back severally, but when she stays, before the next 2 weeks, she's off. And as a father, as a parent, when you are talking to a child that you believe is a nice child and you notice that the character has changed, definitely you have to maybe give her a punishment. And because we are giving her a punishment, at least maybe she feels she cannot bear, then she runs out. This is a person you will send a message 10 times and she will respect you and go and come back. So, but the moment she meets with friends, maybe in the school she attended, that's where I believe she missed the road. I and my wife, we are not happy over it. In fact, every day we cry to God, God, please change this girl, touch her heart, and maybe this incident that happened, we believe that by the grace of God, this is a way for her to be rehabilitated, to become a good person.
Treatment for drug addiction is not cheap. Tamara's father will need to raise about 400,000 naira for her rehab, funds which he says he presently does not have. So, how can parents notice the telltale signs of drug use?
What you need to watch out for as parents are, look at in their room, check for paraphernalia like syringes, matches, ashtray. Again, you see them using sunshade all the time. You see them chewing gum. You see them licking sweet. You see them spraying perfume. You see them, the windows are not locked. They use insecticides to suppress the odor of cannabis. So some of these things, and maybe you find out that this child was doing well before in school. All of a sudden, the level of the performance has dropped. And again, you see children now, most of these drugs now, they call it by a network. MTN, Glo, Etisalat. You might be thinking they are calling this network service. No, they are drugs. So parents should be curious, you know. They should watch children, their attitude, the way they behave.
If you have a child who is always locking herself up in the room, who is playing hide and seek, parents should be able to search the handbags of their children. Some of these things are stored in soft drinks. They should know, why are you always having this soft drink? Another thing is that don't let your children lock their doors. They should also be interested in what the children are doing in the internet. They should be interested in, because a lot of these bad habits are learned in the internet.
Drug abuse and addiction have detrimental effects on users, male or female. But scientific research shows that women suffer more side effects than men. Women are more likely to self-medicate, overdose, and relapse after treatment.
I'll give you an example of a female that died in Opolo here in Yenegoa, Bayelsa State. She had an overdose of tramadol given by her boyfriend, and she's just a teenager. Probably they were taking it to increase their sexual drive, and she took an overdose and she died. So death is the major detrimental effect of it, sudden death. Then most times these girls, when they get pregnant and they're still on these drugs, they have the fetus in them, the child in them may now start having issues. When they give birth to the child might have withdrawal symptoms because of the drug, because most of these drugs, they pass through the placenta to the child. And even after they give birth to the child, and these drugs also pass through the breast milk, is excreted via the breast milk. So the child will also have some addictive properties too. The child will be addicted to the drug. And the child, after giving birth to the child, there will be low birth weight.
Usually, the men are more likely to use drugs. But even though the females are less likely, they are more sensitive to the effects of the drugs. What that means is that, you know, the dose that will affect a man, that will affect the mental status of a man, you know, is usually lower for the female. So between a man and a woman, who is likely to have a mental problem by using drugs is the female.
The dire consequences that will befall families, the state, and society at large when a large number of women end up with mental problems can better be imagined. So what can be done to tackle the problem?
The issue of curbing drug, it should not be the responsibility of NDLA alone. It should be a collective responsibility. The individual must be involved. And that is why we have what we call community participation. The individual, the school, the religious organization, the traditional leaders who are the custodians of our communities, the law enforcement, the NGOs, the professional, the opinion leaders. So everybody must be involved.
A lot of advocacy is needed. There should be drug clubs in secondary schools, talks, jingles on radio, jingles on TV, to tell people about the dangers of drug, declining academic performance, inability to achieve goals, psychosis, mental, and then even in churches, because pastors have to be involved in this. When people have drugs, they take them to churches. Even when they preach, church shouldn't be a very spiritual, it also be because the pastors are, opinion molders, and so and people believe them a lot, even more than all the doctors. Some pastors can tell their members to drink their urine. So this should tell them, if they tell them, they are even likely to believe them more.
What do we need to do? One, the open drug market must close. We must do away with it. It's of no use to us. It's doing us more harm than good. And to replace that, government has come up with the idea of what we call mega distribution. That's National Distribution Guideline, which is supposed to come up very soon. We believe that by 31st December 2018, all open drug markets in Nigeria should close. And then we'll now go into the new National Drug Distribution Guideline. In that guideline, we should have a channel that we can trail and trace all drugs from beginning to the end. That is from the manufacturer down to the consumer. That is what that entails. Bayelsa has already put in place a drug distribution company through which all manner of medicines that should come into Bayelsa should actually come in through that organization or through some other mega distributor companies.
The various solutions profiled need to be implemented speedily, just as Tamara swiftly took her first step towards redemption.
I was afraid at the first time coming into this place again. I was thinking maybe if I come I'll get arrested, but at least the people are friendly. I'm hoping to get better. I'm hoping to start all over again, to take a new turn, to see if anything good can come out of me.